Welcome to Sip Sip Hooray, the podcast for people who like wine without all the stuffiness that is sometimes associated with wine. And you know, when you think of Monterey County wines, Bernardus is one of the first names that comes to mind. Bernardus is synonymous with quality winemaking in Monterey County, producing varietals in both the Burgundian and Bordeaux styles. If you've driven through the Carmel Valley in California, you've no doubt seen the beautiful Bernardus Lodge and Spa, which was started by the winery's founder. And if you've driven just a little farther, you'll get to the tasting room for Bernardus Winery. The story of Bernardus also has cars at its beginning, so buckle up as we get to know winemaker Dean De Korth and vineyard manager and grape whisperer Matt Shea. We are the two Marys who like to eat, drink, and be merry. I'm Mary Babbitt.
And I'm Mary Orland, and we are sitting here with Matt and Dean in the Bernardus tasting room, which is in the very heart of Carmel Valley. And yes, it's a beautiful day here in Carmel Valley. There's lots of folks on a Tuesday afternoon enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the wines. They have their pets along with them. So,
well, Carmel's known for liking dogs, so it's appropriate that we heard a little bark there.
We love that. But, Bernardus is a beloved label. It's got a devoted following, not just here in California and the United States, but also in Holland, and we will get into the reasons why. But the founders have that heritage. Mary mentioned the cars. There's a connection to VWs and race car driving, but there's a rich history here, a rich story. But the exciting thing is, even though this is one of the more established wineries, they keep evolving and growing and adapting and changing. And Mary Babbitt and I were here, I hate to say how many decades ago.
Don't count.
But we have certainly seen the evolution, and we're excited to, hear about the journey from you guys and get into tasting some of the wines and get to know you better. So, Dean and Matt, welcome to Sip Sip Hooray.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
We're glad you guys are with us today.
That.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That went really well.
We love that, a good duet. So, Matt, walk us through the history of how Bernardus came to be.
Certainly. You mentioned cars, and that is a thread throughout our history. And one of the first reasons that our founder, Ben Pon, came to this area, because we also have the Laguna Seca racetrack. He was also an avid golfer, and we're just miles from Pebble Beach. It has lots of golf courses, too. So he was coming to this area for his kind of own hobbies before he even had the idea to start a winery. While he was here, he tasted some of the wonderful wines from Carmel Valley. In particular, one of the earliest wineries out here was Durney Winery that made a Cabernet that he thought he could duplicate, emulate, make even better. So in 1989, he purchased property in Carmel Valley, and we bought an existing winery. We remodeled it to up the production to 50,000 cases, which is about where we are now. And we planted the Bernardus Vineyard at that time. Bernardus was Ben Pon's middle name.
So it's not about the marine influence.
No.
Interesting.
No, it's a family name. So he came here for the golf and the cars, stayed for the wine, needed a place for his friends to stay, so he built a hotel. The hotel was built in 1999. So our first vintage, and Dean can help me on this, was actually a Chardonnay from 1992. Is that correct? 1990.
1990.
And those were grapes that we actually purchased because we were waiting for the Bernardus Vineyard to come into production. So the original vision was that we were going to be a red kind of Bordeaux house. And then we've started buying Chardonnay to get some practice in the winery, to get some cash flow, to get people practiced on how to make wine. And Don Blackburn, our first winemaker, made such a fantastic Chardonnay that we were featured in Wine Spectator, had a cover shot and a 5-page article about how we were one of California's newest, best Chardonnays. And now fully half of our production is the Monterey County Chardonnay, which which is kind of the wine that we're most known for at this time.
That must have been something else to get that right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I mean,
helpful.
geez, that's
Well,
wonderful.
it's always been Mr. Pond and now our new owner, Robert Vonderwallen's vision that we quality. No matter what we do, it has to be as good as we can make it. So they started that way, and we're hopefully continuing it.
Well, and that it speaks to what you're doing too. Not only you, Matt, as the grape whisperer, what you're doing in the vineyards, but Dean, you as the winemaker and director of wine. You've been here almost 2 decades now, right?
Yeah, I'm in my 18th year now.
That's terrific. Tell me your story. The French connection and your French influence comes from you actually studying in France.
I did. It kind of started a long time ago. I was actually a musician in Los Angeles back in the late 70s, early 80s. And I happened to meet my wife, who was a French woman that was living in Los Angeles. We decided to get married, and I'd been playing in rock and roll bands for a long time, decided it was time to settle down and get a real career. And so we got married, and my only other passion besides playing music was wine. I discovered that my parents, when I was growing up, used to go to Napa or Sonoma on the weekend and take us. They would go wine tasting, and my brother and I would just wander around. And I always loved just being in wineries. I always thought the smells were great, and just being in the cellars was really awesome. So I thought, well, the only other thing I could really get into would be wine. So my wife said, well, we could either move to Sacramento and you could go to UC Davis, or we could move to France and you could learn there. So we decided, okay, that sounds a lot better.
France, Sacramento,
yeah, it was an
France,
easy
Sacramento.
choice. Of course, she spoke French. I didn't. So that we just sold everything we owned and pulled together as much money as we could and moved first to the West Coast, where I went back to school just to study French for 2 years and did harvests in the Loire Valley. And then after 2 years, we moved to Burgundy and went back to school there. Studied enology and viticulture for 2 years and worked for wineries. Spent about 7 years in Burgundy. And then in the early 90s, we decided to move back here. So we moved back, and I was able to work for several wineries. At the time, I worked at Morgan Winery for about, I believe, 7 years, winemaker there, and then moved to a year at Talbot. Then I was headhunted for David Bruce Winery in the Santa Cruz Mountains for 2 years. Because I love Pinot, and they said, well, we make mostly Pinot, so they were going to pay me a lot of money. So, and I went there. And then when the previous winemaker here, Mark Cheesebro, decided to retire and move into the grape growing business and start his own winery, he called me and said, are you interested? And we live here in Carmel, so I was commuting an hour, 45 minutes each way to go to David Bruce. It was pretty brutal, especially during harvest. So we decided, I interviewed Mr. Pond at the time, and he said okay and hired me, and ever since then and then soon after that, Matt showed up, so we've had a great relationship ever since.
So Matt, before you showed up, how did you get into becoming a grape whisperer? How did you learn about grape growing? What's your background?
A very circuitous route brought me here. I grew up 2 miles from where we're sitting right now. Other than my mom and dad being avid gardeners, I had no interest in agriculture at all. I went to university up in Oregon at Corvallis at Oregon State University to get a degree in history. My first year in, you were required to take a science elective, and I chose botany. And I easily got an A in botany while I was getting C's in history. So I decided to switch to botany, and then I learned that botany was more kind of research oriented, and I was more into the production side of agriculture. So I switched to horticulture, and I ultimately got a degree in organic and sustainable vegetable production, with the goal of being kind of a Saturday market, kind of hippie farmer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had a VW bus and Guatemalan shorts, and
You were totally set then.
I was totally set until I went looking for a job, and they wanted to pay me in green peppers.
He was called the Pepper Whisperer.
Of course he was.
So I, all along my last 2 years at university, I was living on a vineyard, and I was working on that vineyard to pay my rent, and so I had kind of gotten involved in that world, and I also had a healthy affection for fermented beverages. So you can't ferment green peppers very well. So I, after looking a little bit for a vegetable job and not finding anything, I started really at the bottom with a vineyard management company, and I was out working with the crews. And it came to me naturally. I was the co-manager of the company within 3 years. Then I went to a single vineyard, and then I finished up at another vineyard management company. And we were the largest vineyard management company in Oregon. And I was working myself to the bone. I had 157 employees that reported to me, and we had 14,000 acres, and it was just crazy. And I was ready for a change, so I called Bernardus and said, "Do you want me?"
Aww. And they said yes. Well, and it must have been meant to be, because you said you had a Volkswagen bus, and isn't there a Volkswagen connection with Ben Pon?
There is indeed. The Pon family is credited. His father, Ben Pon Sr., is credited with designing the first VW van. In fact, we have a cocktail napkin or a placemat with a sketch drawing of the first kind of idea for a VW van.
Wow.
So yes, full circle.
It was meant to be.
I think so. Very, very much so.
That is fantastic.
Really cool.
So you guys have both been here long enough to see an evolution in the winery and the new owner. So let's talk about that. Talk about the new owner and his vision for carrying on the legacy of Bernardus.
Our new owner was handpicked by our founder, Ben Pon. We were actually in a 10-year kind of succession plan to change ownership when Ben Pon unfortunately died 2 years ago. So very much a hand-picked selection for the direction that the company is going by Ben Pon himself. Robert van der Wallen is also from Holland, so we continue the legacy of Dutch leadership, which means we're always on time for our meetings.
That's not a joke.
I would be horrible here.
Yes, actually, we're always 10 minutes early. And Robert van der Wallen is a fantastic man who, again, carries the same ideas for quality that Ben Pon had. However, he's a little bit younger and a little bit hipper and a little bit more kind of tapped in with the newer direction of social media branding. He owned a loyalty company where he helped other companies build loyalty programs. So he's very much hip and new and aware. So he's making some changes to our label. That's one change. We've gone from kind of our traditional crest to a more youthful appearance. And he's very much interested in kind of exploring new programs, new wines, but always keeping with the same kind of passion for quality.
Yeah. And does that impact to Dean, for you, the winemaking style at all?
Only in the fact that he wants us to make more of the wine we make now, but never sacrifice quality. So he knows that we've kind of developed a following for a certain style of wines, and he doesn't want that to change. So he's always saying we need to grow, we want to grow, but we'll never sacrifice quality. We want the same style and quality always. And if it comes down to not growing, then the most important thing is maintaining the style and quality. And to that end, also, we're in process of negotiating to build our own new winery. So we'll have a larger winery for maybe the larger production wines and maybe keep the smaller single vineyard wines and marinas at the present facility, because we're maxed out completely there. We just can't grow any bigger where we are. So for our Monterey Chardonnay and the Sauvignon Blanc, which are our big production wines, we're hoping to have a new winery in about 5 years in the Salinas Valley. And that ties in with the Sauvignon Blanc that we've been tasting, which
fantastic.
I shouldn't do that. Which is from the Griva vineyard, Michael Griva in Greenfield. He planted the Muscat clone for us back in the early years, back in the 90s. That's kind of become one of our most famous wines. And so he has a piece of land that we're going to be building a winery on, it looks like. So we're in the middle of getting that arranged right now. So hopefully in the next 5 years, we'll actually have a large facility there for some of the larger production wines.
That's exciting.
It's really
super
exciting.
exciting.
Congratulations. Not many people can say that. That's
he's
cool.
a fantastic person. He's very quality conscious. He grows a lot of the Chardonnay for our Monterey Chardonnay. He's our largest single producer of Chardonnay grapes for the Monterey Chardonnay, along with some smaller productions from other growers. Yeah. And then we have this pure 100% Michael Greva Sauvignon Blanc. So, he's very important to us and a great partner.
I love the aromas that you get from the Muscat clone in Sauvignon Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
It's more floral and just absolutely beautiful. So for folks who come to visit the tasting room, they're not going to see a production winery here. Your winery is actually a good bit of a drive.
Yeah, it's a trot.
It's a trek to get there.
It's about a half an hour away up in the hills.
Mm-hmm. But you do have a lot of vines right here. At the lodge, when you drive by the lodge, there's vines there.
And those, Matt, are those our vines? Can you speak to that?
I certainly can. Yeah, we have a 7-acre vineyard called Ingrid's Vineyard, which is in front of the Bernardus Lodge. And that's Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, which is, as the crow flies, only 9 miles from the Pacific Ocean. So it very much gets the maritime influence, the fog in the morning, and very cool days and consistent weather. And then you drive 25 more miles, 25 more minutes, and you go up to 1,500 feet. You go into the Kashawa Bowl, which is quite a bit hotter. When we left there, it was 91. Where we are now, it's like 68. And up there, we grow our Cabernet, Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Bordeaux, and Malbec. So in any given day, I can go through a 40-degree temperature swing and visit 7 different varieties of grapes.
All in the same county. That's crazy.
Yes.
So you are experiencing that diurnal shift that the grapes experience.
I am, yes, yes. And I learned early on to always have a jacket in the car.
Right. That's true.
Especially when the winds start coming in.
Yeah, you can see it now a little bit, actually. It starts to pick up right around noon, and we get a nice cool breeze, although in Carmel Valley, it's almost always very sunny in the afternoon. So it's kind of got that nice diurnal swing between cool, foggy nights and then nice, pleasantly warm, but not too hot afternoons down here where the Chard and Pinot are.
You know, you mentioned the lodge and the fact that Bernardus has been around a while here. So I know you get a lot of, you're a destination for people and coming to visit the tasting room and stuff. And I'm imagining you get a lot of international visitors because there's a real international connection with Bernardus. Can you tell us about that? You have a lot of fans overseas.
Yes, indeed. We get lots of Dutch visitors. I still can't speak Dutch. I've tried, but it's a hard one. So we get, we sell, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15% of our production goes to Holland.
Really? That's big.
Yeah, we're in a couple other European countries as well. So we get not just visitors because they know our founder or our current owner, but because they've actually tried our wines over in Europe. So that's kind of exciting for them to be here and see where they're grown.
Really fun, yeah.
I know. So you're big in the U.S. and California, and you're big in Holland. That's so cool. And do you find that the folks who find your wines in Holland have a different palate, or because are they more used to the European style? Do they appreciate the California influence?
Well, actually, I think our Chardonnays are a little bit influenced by my years in Burgundy because
I was wondering about
they're kind
that.
of cool weather style Chardonnay Pinots. So I think that really helps us. I think that's one of the reasons Mr. Pon actually really, really liked having the wine. He really appreciated the wines that I was making when I got here. So when first thing he said when I got here was, okay, I don't like the Sauvignon Blanc, you need to change it. So we changed it pretty dramatically, the first vintage.
I like what you've got, what
And,
we just poured. That was really nice.
Oh, it was great. And ever since then, he always said, I don't care what kind of scores you get, as long as I like the wines, that's all that counts. So, and we make some money.
Right. Well, that always helps.
The good thing is also for me is he just said you have basically an unlimited budget. You can buy whatever barrels you want, get whatever grapes you want, just make great wine. So it was sort of a dream come true for me. And I think also the Dutch do appreciate the style of wines. I know the Chardonnay is huge over there right now. It's become one of the most popular wines in Holland. So, and that kind of moves us over to the whole question of the rosé. I don't know if we want to get into that, Matt.
Well,
do you want to speak to the rosé?
Well, let's talk about the Chardonnay that you just
Oh,
poured.
let's talk about Chardonnay.
It's lovely. The Sauvignon Blanc was fantastic. We started with Sauvignon Blanc. Now we're on the Chardonnay. It's really nice.
Some in my glass.
It just magically appeared.
It did. So, well, I've spent, as I said, 7 years in Burgundy, and I've worked for some really great wineries there. And so it's kind of a combination. I only use French oak. I don't use any other. I don't use American oak. No offense to the people who do, but it's a style that I really love. Is the French oak influence, and it's very subtle. I keep it lower, like 25% new oak, and mostly it's in older French oak barrels, or some of it I keep in tank just to keep a lot of bright fruity notes in it. And we try to have it some nice crisp acidity, but some nice fruit expression, some complexity with the oak, and a lot of lees stirring in the barrels. Yes. So I try to get a rounded, some bright, crisp fruit characters, but also some deeper, slight. I hate to use the word buttery because that's kind of
it's creamy.
It's creamy and it has some complexity and some richness to it, but it also has some crisp, bright acidity
it's
and
nice
some
balance.
fruit flavors. And I try to get that, and that's been our most popular wine by far. I mean, it's a good half of what we make.
Is that right?
Our Monterey Chardonnay.
It's fantastic. And I do want to talk about the label because there is a redesign. You have the classic label that you still have on the Marinas, but this is a very graphic representation. It's
a big bee. Yeah.
Giant bee.
Giant bee. And it's all white, and it's very minimalist.
Yeah.
It is. That was one of the things Mr. Robert Van der Wallen wanted to go in a different direction. He wanted it to be very clean and very modern and stylistic. So they came up with the B. The letter B is kind of the symbol of the winery now. And so there's a giant bee on it. The label is cut in the shape of a bee. So, it's dramatically different than the more traditional label we had. But so far it's been pretty well accepted by most people, not everyone.
Well, sometimes change is hard, but it does keep things fresh when you're switching stuff up.
Absolutely.
And I think you guys probably appreciate. We talked about this earlier, Dean, about how wine is always changing. There is no such thing as a duplicate vintage. I mean, every year, and Matt, too, from what happens with the weather. There's just so many factors that go into every year and every season of grape growing. So change is just part of the wine world, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I've changed my style over the years. I used to be 100% barrel fermented. And along with a lot of people, I've become more interested in less oak. And so I have about 25% just keep it in stainless steel to blend in so that there's a sort of a brighter, more fruit-oriented kind of expression of the wine. And it also, you can taste the quality of the vineyards better that way, I think. When it's not overshadowed with a lot of lees contact and a bunch of new oak. So I've kind of adjusted my taste buds and my style of winemaking over the years, along with a lot of people, I think. So.
Right. And I'm guessing, Matt, you too have, changed things up the way, whether you're growing different varietals or just managing your vineyards differently over the years.
And I made some quite a few changes when I first came here 15 years ago, and really started to manage the Bernardus vineyard more like a Pinot vineyard. We dropped yields from about 5 tons the acre to like most years under 2 tons per acre, and really trying to get concentrated, interesting fruit. We've also pulled out maybe 25% of the vineyard and planted new varieties as they've come along, trying different rootstocks and that sort of thing. And more than ever, just because of the climate, I have to constantly be reacting and changing and sort of pivoting on almost a daily basis now. Whereas I think 15, 20 years ago when I was farming, it was much more straightforward. We still had weather events, but they weren't this extreme.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. The fires. I mean, how has fire impacted Bernardus?
Fire is a new reality here in California. In the 16 years and a month that I've been here, we've had 4 fires where we've been evacuated from the winery. 3 of those fires had enough smoke settle to affect the wine, and out of those 3, 2 vintages we just didn't make wine from our estate vineyard because testing from the lab came back off the charts. So we've taken steps to harden the winery, but there's really nothing you can do.
I'm sure you can't. I mean, doing steps in the winery is one thing, but you can't prevent smoke from penetrating the grape skin if it's in the air long enough. So have you changed, especially when you know there's a threat of fire, that the conditions are, very favorable to fires erupting, in terms of how you're farming, when you're picking?
Well, if the smoke is bad enough that the crop's not going to be harvestable, then you just quit spending any money in the vineyard. If there's a hint of smoke, but you don't think it's going to be very damaging, there's steps you can take in the winery, in less barrel time, different fermentations, that sort of thing. But in the vineyard, there's not really anything that you can do. What we can do, which we weren't able to do to the same extent in 2008, we can now do extensive testing, where we test for the volatile phenols that are precursors for smoke taint. So it's possible to know before you go in and harvest if you're going to have the effects of smoke. And that's a great tool because you can make all kinds of management decisions.
Yes.
Knowing if you're going to pick or not.
Oh, and save the time, the effort, the money of picking a crop and taking care of a crop that's not going to be any good.
Well, that's got to be heartbreaking.
Oh,
that
I'm sure.
You have brought the crop to near fruition, and then you just, it's lost. It's lost. So when that happens, clearly you don't make the vintage of those varietals that year. How does that present itself in terms of you've got a shortage? Are you, can you fill in, or it's just, people can't get the wines they want?
I'm shaking my head no. We can't fill in. That's been a problem. 2020, we had almost no red grapes we could pick because there was fire around Santa Lucia Highlands and in Carmel Valley as well. In fact, as Matt can tell you, it actually burned part of the upper rows of the Marinus vineyard were actually burned. And he was out there with the fire people trying to help guide the fire away from the vineyard. And so we just got a little tiny bit of Pinot Noir from some Arroyo Seco vineyards, 2 of them, one from Griva and one from a neighbor. So we made a small amount of Monterey Pinot that year. We hadn't made Monterey Pinot for a long time. And so now we're starting to make it again. But that was only, maybe 800 cases or something. That was the only red wine we could produce that year. So it was a big loss. So we worked really closely with Gary Francione in the Santa Lucia Highlands, which is my favorite grower in the world. And so we get a lot of single vineyard wines from Gary Francione and Mark Pizzoni also. So those are fantastic, but in 2020 we couldn't get any of it, and they were all heartbroken too. I mean, they were sending up samples, and we were sending up samples, and they just kept coming back like it's just too borderline to take a risk. So
this has impacted so much of California and the West. I mean, and it's so sad.
Absolutely.
Oregon, Washington, it's everywhere.
Yeah. It's not just a Bernardus problem, it's everybody's. So we've tried the Sauvignon Blanc and the Chardonnay, 2 winners, and you said you have a rosé you wanted to talk about? I thought I heard you say that, Dean.
Yeah, we did. We've always made a little Chardonnay for ourselves out of some Pinot Noir grapes.
Rosé.
But Mr. Van der Wallen loves Provence rosé from the south of France. So he has organized this bottling from a winery called Lacoste in the south of France, from Provence. And we have a new wine that we're just releasing that's sort of a wine made there, but with kind of input from us here at the winery of the style. And our first vintage is
2021.
2021.
The back of the bottle's
It's on the
facing
back
me.
of the
That's
bottle.
why I know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't have my reading glasses on, so. Oh, yeah, that's right, 2021. And since Mr. Van der Wallen, he has a marketing background, they came up with a really beautiful bottle with a very clever logo. And it's just an absolutely gorgeous rosé from Provence. And that's one of the things he loves and wants to grow that program, as well as our own programs here.
Well, people just love rosé.
Oh, it's huge now. It's so funny. Years ago, you couldn't pay people to put it on the
I
table.
mean, we talk about the evolution of wine and how things are constantly changing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, and it's gone through so many phases now. There was the brosé phase, and
Rosé, yeah.
I remember going through the Merlot phase where it was a huge Merlot in the early 90s. Everybody wanted Merlot. And then all of a sudden, like 10 years later, it's like, oh, don't pour Merlot. I don't drink Merlot.
Right.
Now people are drinking it again. And, it should just be, if it's really good,
If it tastes good, we
worry
should,
about
yeah,
it.
exactly.
But
And
it's
that's
kind of a pop culture phenomenon, wine. If it goes through these funny phases, like the rosé, now it's huge. It's amazing.
so Dean, this being the 2021 vintage, you probably didn't get to travel to Provence.
They kept telling me I was going to go, but then because of COVID, they kept having problems getting people to travel. So they sent samples over from Lacoste for us to taste. So we, as a group, we tasted through them and kind of scored the ones that we really liked. So the one I picked, fortunately, they had other people taste them as well and decided that I was right, and that's the one they actually made the wine from.
Go
So I was lucky.
Yay.
Yeah, I was very happy about that, since I was really worried that the owner was going to go, no, I don't like that one. What's Dean thinking? I don't know. So anyway, I think we came up with a really great product here.
Oh, I think you did. This is what I love about rosé. I mean, just the strawberry aromas. It's so fragrant.
Mm-hmm.
I just love how crisp and clean it is, and it's much lower alcohol than our other still wines, and very soft, and it's just a very approachable wine.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Fun. And the label, Dean, you were mentioning, it's again a little bit different from even the labels on the Chardonnay and the Sauv Blanc and some interlocking bees.
Which kind of look like hearts.
Which
Yes.
look like hearts, exactly. Yeah, they were very clever about that.
Love that. And love this wine. It's terrific.
I know. It's really.
Well, and I hope you guys get a trip to Provence in the near future.
They keep saying that we're going to, so we're waiting.
I think it's nice on a summer wine or a patio wine. A lower alcohol is really nice because, you're not in the tank, poolside or whatever.
Yeah. So Matt, Ben Pond could have started a winery anywhere in the world, right? How did he come to choose Carmel Valley?
Well, he knew I was born and raised here.
The most important criteria.
As we mentioned, it was his love of golf and race car driving that probably brought him here. But he had dual citizenship and ended up really spending half of his time here. Really fell in love with this area, and has lifelong friends here as well. So I think it was kind of the perfect combination of it being a wonderful grape region, having a wonderful climate, and actually a much better climate than Holland. And it having all of his hobbies, race car driving, golf, and hospitality.
And he was kind of a whirlwind of a guy, right? Very busy, energetic, go.
He was a bon vivant. He kind of separated from his siblings who stayed in the Pond family business, and he was an Olympian. He was an avid hunter. He was a race car driver.
What was he in the Olympics for?
He was in the 1972 Olympics. He doesn't talk about it because he only won a bronze. And
only a bronze. Come on now.
And I believe it was skeet shooting. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, I read about that. Yeah.
So he was, like I said, an avid hunter, and so anything to do with guns, he was all about.
Okay.
And he, at one point, had homes on 3 or 4 continents and would just kind of travel around, racing cars, hunting.
What a
and,
life.
And drinking wine.
Yeah.
A true bon vivant.
Well, and he truly left his mark on this area. I mean,
Yes, he did.
Definitely. We were the first tasting room in Carmel Valley.
Were you?
In 1996. We opened this tasting room, and we were the first. And now Carmel Valley is a legitimate, known destination for wine
It
tasting.
is. You can just park your car and walk to so many different tasting rooms, sample a wide variety of wines, wine styles, grape varieties. I mean, it's just great.
I love also the fact that that Ben Pon blessed Robert Vanderhollen as his successor, right? Is the guy to take over and run the wine and own the winery and carry on the Bernardus name. I love that.
He actually, Robert Vandervallen constructed and founded a new golf course in south part of Holland called Bernardus Golf.
Oh,
and
that's
Mr.
cool.
Pon was able, it wasn't 100% finished when Mr. Pon was the last trip over there, but we actually have some pictures of Ben hitting some golf balls on this barely new, barely functioning golf course. And so Mr. Vandervallen's very, very much, he's in love with the whole legacy that Ben created. And he knows that Mr. Pon, the whole Pon family in Holland is very, very famous. They've imported all these cars, the Porsches, Lamborghinis, and Volkswagens, and they're a very famous, wealthy family. So he really wanted to kind of keep that whole spirit going with something Mr. Pon, the two loves he loved, which were the golf and wine. And
I
eating.
love that. Great.
Restaurants as well.
Yeah.
So-
How nice, though.
So I think we have a couple of reds to taste.
Once again, it's a shame to pour these wines. We just take sips
please
and we
do.
pour
We're
in.
all, got a lot to do here today.
Dean, do you want to introduce this wine?
This must be the San Luis Highlands 2021. It is. So, yes, we are about to sip some of our San Luis Highlands. We do 5 different single vineyard wines from Pinot Noir from San Lucia Highlands, including also the Ingrid's Pinot Noir from the front of the lodge here in Carmel Valley. And so those are small production wines, but from the best vineyards in the county. You want to pour for us there, Mr. Matt? Thank you. And we also get from selected vineyards in San Lucia Highlands to have a larger production wine. We make about 8,000 cases of a San Lucia Highlands wine from a blend of about 5 different grape growers in San Lucia Highlands. And this is, we're going to taste our 2021, which I'm not sure if it's released at the moment, but if it isn't, it should be soon. And anyway, San Lucia Highlands is just such a wonderful location for both Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that it's become almost world famous.
I was
now.
just going to say it's got a worldwide reputation, I would say. I mean, it's the place so many people are seeking, trying to get grapes from, and make because
Just
The aromas are
Alive.
pretty amazing,
The
and this
aromas
is
are-
not even our
such a
single vineyard
lively-
wine.
I know it's sometimes blends just really.
Yeah, blends can be great.
Are
Really,
great, yeah.
it's one of the parts of my job that I love the most is putting together blends. I have an assistant winemaker, Jim McCabe, and he pulls samples for me, and then he and I taste through them and come up with ideas on the blends for, like, when I pick grapes, I usually split them up into small groups. So if I have a Rosella's Pinot Noir picking, I'll have maybe 5 different little picks that I treat a little differently, each one of them. So I might have anywhere from 4 to 12 barrels of each type of Rosella's Pinot Noir from that vintage. And then I have to kind of put together a blend of the best and have everything kind of balanced and the right flavors that I really like. And it depends. We get 3 different clones from Rosella's vineyard. And then I treat them a little differently each time. So that's the fun of the job, is putting together blends. I love that part of it.
Ooh, you have blended up a great one here. This is
I love
really
this.
good.
And this is there's a little bit of the Gary Franchione vineyards in this, but it's mostly Tendre Vineyard, and some Kirk Williams, and a little bit from the other Francione vineyards, and
So like
a little bit of
So that would be Gary's.
Sobranes.
Yeah.
The Gary's Vineyard, we get so little that it 100% goes into the Gary's Vineyard bottling.
Okay. And is there some Rosellas in this?
A little bit of Rosellas. Anything that doesn't make it into the final blend for the single vineyard bottling will go into this.
Okay.
So it's going to be a small percentage, of course.
But you named some of, you said Gary Francione is one of your favorite growers,
Yeah.
but also Tendre Vineyards. Tendre is amazing.
Some
Tendre's
heavy
been
hitters
great.
there, yeah.
The good thing about Tendre or Joe Alarid is that he has large production, and I'm able to get a lot more grapes from him. So that's really kind of the anchor for the Santa Lucia Highlands blend is from Joe Alarid's Tendre Vineyard. So I get Rosella's Vineyard, Pinot, Sierra Mar Vineyard, which is Gary Francione also. I love that vineyard. If you've ever been there, it's perched up on a mountaintop practically. It's an incredible view, and it grows some of the best Chardonnay in the state. It's absolutely superb. And then I love Rosellas, and we get Sobranes, we get Gary's. So we were super, super lucky. It's one of the reasons I was really happy to leave David Bruce to come here, because the grapes I was able to get here were just the best in the state for me, what I like the best.
You get the cream of the pick.
For me, yeah, and I'm able to kind of pick the blocks and the clones I want. So I've known Gary since the '90s, so I've known him a long time, and so we're good friends. And if I decide, okay, I don't really like this clone from this block, can I swap it out with somebody? He'll find a way to make it happen for me. So he's been really good to me.
That's amazing. Fantastic.
Love that.
Wonderful man,
Yep, really.
and his wife Rosella. She's great too. And his kids, Adam and Nick, they're all great. Great family.
So we have one more wine, and if anybody,
It's a pity, but here I go. I'm pouring it out.
if
It's
anybody,
understandable.
most people probably know Bernardus through this wine. This is your Bordeaux blend, Marinus.
Yes, and this is what we often refer to as our flagship wine.
Yeah.
And it is what Ben Pon's vision for the winery was in the beginning, was a Carmel Valley, California, Bordeaux.
They're laughing because they're
style.
sitting right next to each other, just practically hugging as they're trying to share this microphone. So it's I wish you all could see what I'm watching, but it's cute and fun. And clearly these guys are good friends because they're super comfy with one another.
Indeed, we are. So yeah, the Marinus is not only Ben Pon's vision, but one of our favorite wines too. It's important to me because I live on the vineyard where this is grown.
Do you?
So
Oh,
I wake up every morning and go and walk through these vines.
And
so
check on your little babies.
check on my babies. Exactly. And it's very much a favorite in the local community as well. It's very well known and very appreciated.
What vintage are we tasting?
We're drinking the 2013.
13.
Yes.
Because I was going to say, it's so smooth.
Well, we, over the years, have figured out, and a lot of our neighbors think we're crazy, but we figured out that if we let it hang into November and even times into December, that the harshness of the tannins will dissipate, the pyrazines and the kind of vegetative characters will go away, and the sugars don't really spike. It stops accumulating sugar at about 23, 24 bricks. But the skins get kind of loose and flabby and break down a little bit. Yields drop because the fruit's kind of getting naturally desiccated, not a kind of sugar desiccated. And like I said, all of our neighbors have put the tractors in the barn and are done for the year. And Dean and I are wrestling about when to pick.
It's December 1st. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah. So it's a combination of a wonderful site. It's one of the only south-facing vineyards in the Cachagua Bowl. great soils, great clone selections, and then Dean's expertise on making a really great wine.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Wow, and the 2013, is this your current release?
No, we're up to.
So you're treating us to something special.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
wow.
it's a Tuesday. We like to do
Tuesday wine.
Well, that explains it. Yeah. When you think about the fact that it's a Tuesday, of course you're going to roll out the library.
But one of the nice things about this wine is I think it's ready to drink in about 3 to 4 years, and it will stay vibrant for 10 to 15 to 20 even. We've tasted through library wines back to the 90s, and maybe the early 90s are getting a little tired, but the late 90s are still vibrant and fresh. Wow. So it's a fun.
This is a wine I want to see how it's going to evolve in the glass over a little bit of time here.
This is lovely. It's very silky and the great fruit flavor. I love it.
Matt and I tasted through several vintages just before you came to see what was going to show the best. And the newer, the 2014, 15, 16 they were really nice and fruit forward, but they were still really kind of tannically structured and tight and needed to really rest and open up. And so that's why we kind of picked the 13, which is really just getting into that period where it's great to drink it. So.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's one of Ben's ideas originally, was just to make a Bordeaux that would be age-worthy, something in a Bordeaux style in California. That was always not as opulent and fruit bomb kind of esque as some of the bigger Napa types, but something that was more of a leaner, age-worthy style of a Bordeaux style wine in California.
Really gorgeous and elegant. I love it.
I know, and I can tell it. In 5 years from now, it's still going to be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be different, but it's still going to, have that core character to it.
I was thinking about the fact that you said you live at the vineyard. That's, I think, a tremendous amount of people would say that would be a dream come true for them. Tell me what it's like to live on a vineyard.
Well, everybody thinks that our wine life is so romantic and idealistic and wonderful.
Look at you two. I mean, it is, right?
It basically means I wake up at work. It is fantastic, and it's the only life I can really envision for myself. I really love what I do, and the fact that it's kind of remote where the vineyard is. It's up in the hills. It's 20 minutes to the nearest coffee shop. It's perfect for me, and for my dog. And it's an idyllic life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And you really get to watch the seasons through your vines too, right?
That's true.
In California, we don't have really dramatic seasons necessarily, but you're really right there with the growing season, and you get to see everything that's happening that way.
Correct. And I did, 11 vintages in Oregon before coming down here. And I've left the rainy winters of Oregon in the rearview mirror.
Bye-bye.
I still have a very fond appreciation for Willamette Valley Pinot Noirs. But the California lifestyle, the California climate, and growing grapes here in Monterey County is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, these wines are so delicious, and we're so honored that you are sharing the 2013 with us today.
Thank you.
And sharing the story of Bernardus. And we're so excited about how Robert, the new owner, is really such a great caretaker of the Bernardus legacy, and that he wants it to continue and, hopefully appeal to a new audience. But, you're such an anchor for Carmel Valley, for Monterey County, and such great ambassadors as well. So, cheers to you guys.
Yeah, this has been a
Cheers.
treat to what Bernardus, the history and the future of Bernardus. Thank you for sharing both with us.
Thank you for joining us. It's been a perfect Tuesday.
Perfect Tuesday.
Sip, sip, hooray, guys.
Sip, sip, hooray.
Cheers.
Thank you all for coming down to Mary's. We're really happy to host you here today, and great to see you both again.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure. And to Tuesday wine.
Cheers to Tuesdays.
Tuesday.
Well, that's going to do it for our show today. Thank you for listening to Sip Sip Hooray podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show because we sure love bringing it to you. And if you do like it, we hope you share Sip Sip Hooray with your friends.
So go to whatever platform you listen to our podcast on. Be sure to review us, rate us. It helps other people find their way to Sip Sip Hooray. And you can also subscribe to our pod so you don't miss another episode when it drops.
If you're looking for past episodes of Sip Sip Hooray, you can find them on our website. It's sipsiphoooraypodcast.com.
Be sure to follow us also on social media. We are at Sip Sip Hooray Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And on Twitter, we are at Sip Sip Hooray, the number 1. Be sure to DM us with any ideas, questions, or just leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
We are, of course, the two Marys, and we do like to eat, drink, and be merry. So, Mary Orland, cheers to you and Sip Sip Hooray.
Cheers, Mary Babbitt. Sip Sip Hooray.